if you're a ghoster, if you're constantly ghosting people for any reason whatsoever, be it candidates or business prospects or whatever, you're leaving a trail of this bad habit that, it's gonna leave your reputation.
So Max, today we'll be talking about ghosting in business. So first of all, what is ghosting?
Thanks for asking, and pleasure to be back again, Jessica. Just a few years ago, not too many years ago, people started kind of defining the idea of dating somebody for a couple times and then completely ignoring them, just as if you left the planet, basically, and never ever respond to any of their communication. All right, so that's a lot of reason behind it is, of course, because of the online media, the social apps, the dating apps, and the world of internet, where people can hide actually behind their phones, and they don't have to actually shake hands with people and be physically there most of the time. So it's actually, there are some surveys out there suggesting that out of single millennials, 80% of them have actually been ghosted once or twice in the past. So that's quite a high number. All right, but of course, you're going to ask me the question, what's that got to do with business? Why are we sitting here talking about it? Or
are you going to ghost me? So why is this relevant in business? Because we have heard about it in dating before, but business side of things, so what does it mean?
Let's get back to that. But however, I forgot to ask you, have you ever been ghosted?
Oh, I knew you were going to do this.
I had to, right?
I have been ghosted, but I also am a ghoster.
You've done... Really?
Millennial dating. So have you ever been ghosted?
Within business, yes.
And?
Absolutely. It happens to everybody, I think. So let's bring it to the business side, which is why we're sitting here and talk about ghosting in business, right? And I think, of course, I don't think there's a lot of research around it. I don't think scientists are looking into kind of putting that into the lab environment and investigate how many people are being ghosted, because it's just the concept as a whole has been around just a few years. However, if you look at it on a day-to-day business, even internally in organizations, you see a lot of people just ignoring each other's messages. Really easy to hide behind the whole inbox issue. Oh, I'm sorry, if you meet the person in person, then you're like, oh, well, my inbox is just full of thousands of emails. What am I gonna do? Is life, even internally, right? And this is so funny because we talk about business communication all the time. We've actually, with our series, with you guys collaborating, we've been talking about business communication. We've been talking about the fact that 86% of all failure within business, generally, a lot of times internally especially, is based on, partially based on bad communication. Managers point out that 60% of the time, their biggest challenge is communication and being able to effectively communicate. So this is, of course, one part of it, very important part of it as well. And so what's happening? Where is it happening the most? Of course, within the broken recruitment processes out there. Candidates looking for a job, maybe even going through. I have friends who've been going through 6 months of rounds of interviews, face-to-face interviews. They've been traveling to the destination, talking to high-level executives. And then after 6 or 7 months, the whole process just dies out. And they think it's still on. But then they never hear anything. They can't get hold of anybody. The entire organization just seems to disappear. All right, so that's one part of it. But then also when people try to sell, trying to build a business relationship, etc., it's really happening everywhere. And you've experienced it too. And not only once, within the business world, right?
Right. And this can probably be broken down into two sections, this question. So how can you prevent ghosting in business? So for someone that is ghosting other organizations and also someone that has been ghosted.
Now, of course, you can never prevent it because you're always going to have people who are going to be thinking that my time is much more important than contacting somebody or replying and getting back to somebody who I'm never going to do business with ever again. It's a small world, so even if it's on social media, even if it's just pure some email exchange, etc., you never know if somebody's going to come back to you, and for some reason you might need them. And it shouldn't actually really matter either, because no matter what you do, you're always leaving a trail. One of my favorite quotes is, from Emerson. He says, "Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail." If you're a ghoster If you're constantly ghosting people for any reason whatsoever, be it candidates or business prospects or whatever, you're leaving a trail of this bad habit that, it's gonna leave your reputation. Industry, especially if you're focused within an industry, which most people are, you're leaving a trail, right? So it's not so much about management coming in and kind of slapping people on the wrist and say, hey, you've been a bad one now. You should change this. You should never ghost again. But it's about realizing that if you never do that, if you never ghost, you could actually create yourself a much better reputation and be known as the person who is always responsive. And even in cases where they know there's not going to be any business, at least you have the decency, which is the case in the dating area as well as connect to the personal side. People don't remember what you did or said. They remember how you made them feel, right? And if that's the case, being ghosted, be it in dating or in business, is going to be very emotional for you. So I think one of the main things is to remember, hey, if somebody's in touch with me, I'm going to build that relationship. And even if I'm going to close it, I will be in charge of closing it. And if you're the one being ghosted, first of all, of course, it might be a sign for you that, just forget about it. It's not worth it. Sometimes you should follow up because sometimes genuinely, I'm sure I've been missing out a lot of emails or notes sometimes along my career. It's never been intentional. So you never know if somebody's actually extremely busy or they got something on the private side. So you should actually give them the benefit of getting back, following up a couple of times if you feel. And most importantly, move on. If you're a candidate, especially looking for a job or something, you got to know, you put it out there, you do the effort that you're going to do, put the energy there, but then close it up, move on, no matter what. Would you agree?
I would agree. But I also think for a recruitment process, it's important to show your commitment to the role that you're looking to get as well. It's the balance of both. Absolutely.
So candidates, they should not give up just because they're not hearing from the, being the recruiters or the company itself. But they should, kind of really work on that area where they can possibly generate a response. That's a possibility too. But then always they should have a second, third, fourth option, alternative. I was this morning reading an article, funny enough, about some executives saying that we had these candidates, brilliant talent. We were interviewing them, and then, to the very end, we were about to make them an offer, and then they disappeared. And I was just saying, yeah, you got ghosted. Don't you think that if thousands of candidates are constantly being ghosted, they kind of take pleasure in the opportunity of getting back to some recruiters all of a sudden? So it really turns into a vicious circle unless we do something about it.
Well, Max, thank you so much for coming in today and sharing your words of wisdom with us.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Well, that's all from us here in the Geneva studios, but we want to hear how you found this interview, so please do like and comment on dukascopy.tv.